Hi, everybody. It's Dr. Barbara Eaton and Michala, and we're coming to you live on Friday the 3rd. And I am so excited to do this live interview today, especially because Michala was my kid's babysitter. And so I've gotten to watch Michala grow up since she was just a little tiny thing. And Michala, I have to say, has always been like my daughter Micah, always happy and lights up the room and makes everyone feel good about themselves, and has an aversion to the word no. Like, it's like, well, they don't even hear the word no. Like, what? That's not a word. So I'm really excited to bring Michala to you live. So just, if you remember, if you have a question, post it below. If you don't want it to show, your name to show or the question to show, then you need to private message me. You can private message me, and I have my phone right here and it'll pop up. So actually that just reminds me of something. I have to, Michala, if you don't have do not disturb on your computer going, make sure you click that or else your messages come up. So at any rate, we're ready to go. Sharon Ost, thanks for joining us. She says, way to go. Michala's awesome, awesome, awesome. So let's just start with, how'd you get here? Like, what's going on? How did you get here? So tell us about this journey that's had absolutely no, my brother says, show your phone again. Oh, you're checking out my really cool camo, my cool camel print. I fancy myself a hunter. Tell us how you got here. And I'm jokingly saying it's been without any kind of challenges, because I'm pretty sure that's not the case. So take it away.
Okay, so I guess sophomore year of undergrad, I found out I was pregnant, and that was sort of where everything started. And let's see, there comes a time where everybody makes a choice in their life, right? Like based on their own path, instead of what like your parents tell you or your friends tell you. Like, and some people it's picking a job that's unpopular, or it's picking a college program that, you know, everyone said they shouldn't do, or following their dream or whatever. And it was an extremely unpopular decision, and I kind of had to stick with it, and everything changed when I made decisions based on my life and my values instead of what other people said. And then, I don't know, pretty much since then, it's been a long string of oops.
That's a great way to look at it. Like, oops. Keep rolling.
So flexibility, definitely. Yeah. Just oops. 90%.
Hey, Michala, so we're getting messages that you're not heard very well. Okay. Do you have earphones?
In my car.
Okay, no problem. So just like maybe turn up the volume a little bit. So Bob, when she talks again, if you can say, yep, here we can hear you now.
Hello.
That would be great.
Hello.
Is that better? I can hear you great, but so let's keep rolling. All right, so let's talk about the first challenges that you overcame as a single mom. So you're in college at the time.
Yeah. So
right? Okay.
I think the biggest one was there's a big push in probably your generation more than mine, but to have a degree, and to like you need a degree to get a good job, or else you're some sort of failure or something like that. And my parents insinuated as much as well. Like if I didn't get my bachelor's degree, I would be a failure. And I don't know. I just think it's funny whenever someone says you have to do something. And so I'm like, oh, okay. And so that was like the biggest challenge, was when I decided to stop going to school. He was a year and a half when I was like, yeah, no more. That's not me.
What made you decide that? Like what was that gnawing feeling that made you decide college isn't for me? And it's interesting that you say that, because like from my generation, I feel like there's a huge push on all of you that like your generation, when you're done with high school, you just go to college, even if you don't really want a degree, or even if you don't want anything attached to college, that you just go to college because that's the next thing. And you know, I see people my age sacrificing so much of their own lives, you know, their marriages or their own enjoyment in order to provide college for their kids who maybe don't even want to be in college. And so it's this whole cycle of how our culture's been inundated with these lies that I think really are just to put more money into the institutions because they're making oodles and oodles of cash. Meanwhile, these kids have these gigantic loans, or these parents, you know, like never get out of this hamster wheel of I got to make money, I got to make money, I got to make money in order for my kid to go to college, even though my kid doesn't want to go to college. So like what prompted you to go, all right, you know what, enough? And then where did you go after that?
Okay, so that's two parts. First, I think just as a society right now, we switched. We're not in the information age. We don't need to be memorizing things. We have computers, we have social media, we have the ability to learn instantly. We don't need that anymore. We're in a social age. We're in like an integrated age where everyone has their phone. Like, why would I need a piece of paper, especially since we don't have job security anymore? The like depression hit, or recession, sorry, in 08.
Almost a depression. Yeah.
And I went to college in 09. So like I was watching all my friends graduate and not get jobs, and like there's no such thing as job security. So that was just like societally. And then me personally, in college, everyone's like, oh, be an employee. I'm not an employee. I don't work well with others. I don't need a boss. It's not me. I just know myself, and myself is not, I'm not an employee.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was part of it too. So those two.
It's almost like get in line, you know,
Yeah.
put out your tray, get your dumps. It's like really institutionalized.
Yeah, I don't
how I think we're taught in today's society, and I'm thankful my parents taught me right from the beginning to never be a W-2 earner, and that's what you're talking about. And as a W-2 earner, yeah, you got a boss who's telling you when to show up, when to take time off, and and really very little incentive to do your very best, to 10x, to get ahead. It's almost like if you do that, you're considered that you don't play well with others. So here's a question. So travel, let's talk about, so what happened? You said, see ya to college. And then what did you do? Did you sit home and eat bonbons and take care of your son, or what happened?
Yes, as a single mother. Okay, so the breaking point was that I decided, okay, I was in school and I decided I wanted to do wine, and I just kind of fell in love with wine and grapes and everything that has to do with it, from growing them all the way to restaurants and celebrations and stuff. So that was the next step. I started being a somm, and I worked through, there's like a master court of sommelier that regulates it in the States and in Europe. And so I went through that program, and I was working at a restaurant downtown, and no, I still wasn't traveling yet. Let's see. Well, I guess I started in 2015. I was like, I'm done. I'm done with the grind, and I'm done with, you know, the American dream and the picket fence. And I was like, I'm getting in a car and I'm going. And I did. I talked my my best friend from high school into a totaled Ford Escort, and we drove, and we were supposed to be going to Panama, and that did not. We didn't make it. We didn't make it to Panama, but that was kind of the start. I got a taste for it, and a year later, Landon wanted to go to the Grand Canyon for his birthday, and I was like, okay, yeah, sure, I'm sure I can make that happen. And I had the funds, and I had the initiative, and I had the go, and work was like, no, you don't have vacation time. And I was like, I need permission to use my own time? Yeah, no. So I worked with them through the end of graduation season, which is like national holiday for Ann Arbor restaurants, and then quit. I was like, I'm done. So that was last May, and ever since then, I've been self-employed through various activities. But yeah, no boss, no more. Not.
So how did you have enough money as a single mom to be able to take a trip to, en route to Panama and then to the Grand Canyon. Like, let's talk about that for a few minutes. So one of the things that you must have had to abandon was, I have to have a new car. I have to give my kid every single toy.
Yeah.
I have to have him in every sport. I have to have him in every activity. I have to wear these clothes. We have to have, he's got to have an iPad. So let's talk about, how did you step aside from that too? Because that's a huge trap.
Yeah. Okay. So consumerism is huge, and you kind of have to watch what you're putting into yourself. So I quit TV. I don't do anything that has advertisements. I don't need somebody else telling me what I should buy and what I need to be considered a good human. I don't wear fancy clothes. I'm like, all my clothes are black and white and gray.
Yeah.
They all match, and I'm like, perfect. But yeah, the restaurant was very lucrative. I think I prioritized really well and was able to save and then spend and then save and then spend, and kind of mini retirements like Timothy Ferris talks about, and just really good at prioritizing.
So I think you bring up a good point too. Let's go back to the wine thing. So I know Michala well enough and know her family very well. And it wasn't like she was brought up in this social family that they were going to all these fancy places. And so she was introduced to wineries and, all of the finer things in life. But instead, and I think that's the cool thing about the internet and the fact that we have eyes that can read, is you can become an expert in anything. Like even if you don't know anything today, what is it? If you read solid on a topic, I think it is for like a year or something, and obviously that's consistent reading, then you can become an expert in that topic. So the cool thing about that is it levels the playing field. So how did you go from, I'm a college dropout single mom to I am like sought after wine, whatever that S word is that you use? How'd you do that?
Molly, so my mom actually was super supportive, which was fascinating because if you know my parents, they are teetotalers. They no alcohol. Alcohol is bad. Like, we grew up in, I don't know, alcoholic genes or something. I don't know. So no wine growing up. But she saw that was something that I was passionate about, and she saw that I was serious and got me a whole bunch of books and really supported me in that. And the rest, I guess, was just my determination or intelligence or the internet. Or there's a ton of wine in Ann Arbor. It's a great area to learn. I don't know. Yeah, just put the pieces together. I don't take no for an answer. So I was like, I'm going to be a somm.
There you go. So, and I think for those of you who are watching this that have young children, watching. So number one, Michala's parents chose early on to homeschool their kids. So they taught them, like, you only have to do this much work. So you can make it last all day. You can make it last all week, or you can get it done and go and do what you want. And they didn't have a lot of, I don't want to say structure, because they were very structured, and they learned a ton of responsibility. Like, even when my kids would go over and visit, Aunt Mickey had chores for them to do, just like if they came to my house. There were chores, there were boundaries, there were standards, there were, this is how we do things, and we consider the preciousness of others. And, it wasn't just, I see this movement or this thing in parenting today of, oh, just let your kids make up their own decisions and let them do whatever. Well, that's not even a little bit close to how life is going to go later. So I've always said kids learn to make great decisions because they watch their parents making good decisions for them. So, so that grooming of independence started when she was young. It didn't all of a sudden just happen when she was 19. She was taught that. And so I encourage any parent who has young kids, like, please really question the pathway that you're taking your children down in terms of teaching them independence. In my opinion, there's a right way and there's kind of a diluted way of teaching them independence. And if their independence means that it's all about them, you're probably going to have a depressed kid, because if all we're ever taught is to think about me and it's all about me and it's all about me and it's all about me, that's not life. And then eventually they come smack into that, whether it's at work or with friends who they're not going to just like toe your line And that becomes very frustrating for a child to be like, whoa, wait, it's always been about me. And now it's not. So then let's go to, all right. So then Michala said, I read books. Like, you don't even have to buy the books. You can read stuff online. You can go to the library. So
Yeah.
then once you had that certification or that specialty, then what happened? And were there any struggles in that time? Did you ever feel like, oh, I should just go back to having a job? Like, have there ever been times that you've questioned what you were doing, and how did you overcome that?
Yes. So I question what I'm doing every single day. And there's a lot of doubt and there's a lot of fear. I think like any other human, right? I don't know. No one's ever lived my life before, right? No one's ever lived your life. Like, I don't know. Um, so so I took level 1 for the sommelier exam, and then I took level 2 like 2 months later and failed. And that was the first time that I'd ever cared about something and not succeeded. And I questioned, yeah, I was like, I should go back to school. I don't know what I'm doing. Like, this is terrible. I'm the worst. And then I was just like, wait, no, I want this and I will do whatever it
Nice.
takes to get this. And yeah, it took four more months and I powered through and I got it, like,
Nice.
yeah, determination.
There you go. And I think you bring up a really good point. I was talking about this on a coaching call this morning, that, our emotions are a really terrible indicator of where we should go. So, Michala just said, she's a really, really bright young lady. And so school, getting all A's and being in the advanced classes, yeah, it's been work for her, but never was that hard. So now here she had to learn something brand new, and I'm like everybody else in this area. Like, I have to actually push through it. And instead of allowing the emotion of frustration or allowing the emotion of, am I doing the right thing, to stop her, she just kept focused on what's on the other side of that, right? So we never change our target, we 10x our action. So let's talk about then the travel. How did that begin, and how are you getting things funded?
Okay, so oh gosh, I'm very creative and resourceful. So 2 years ago was when I decided I wanted to start traveling, and obviously a single mom, no money. What did I say? I told Sean, my brother, I told him I was going to visit 10 countries and 7 continents by the time I was 28. And I am 26 right now. And I was like, okay, so I don't have any money. I was a single mom. I was figuring out how to pay Ann Arbor rent, and I figured if I drove down to Colombia, right, then I would get 2 continents and however many countries is in between here and Colombia. Well, clearly that didn't work, but you find out, like, by action, you find out through doing that you can do it. And yeah, there's going to be obstacles, but it's not as much. Like, just take the first step. The first step is always the hardest, and as soon as you start going, like, everything else sort of falls into place. And yeah, money from the restaurant was the main source of funding until I quit. And then the number of jobs that I've tried on and cast off. I'm really good at cutting my losses. I'm really good at saying, you know what, this isn't a good return on investment, whether that's time or money or whatever, and saying, okay, what's next, and building up a
Nice.
repertoire of things that I can do. I can now I can do service, I can do wine, I can do sales, I can do the stock market, I can do internet marketing. I was doing social media consulting a lot. I'm only doing that a little now. But pretty much anything that emphasizes freedom and like time freedom. Yep.
Nice. And so did you get formal training in all of that? Did you know, like, everything to do with social media marketing before you jumped in and said, hey, I can help you? Or
No,
okay. So how did that happen? Like, how do you go from I don't really know much, but I can still help other people? Like, where do you get that kind of confidence?
Well, I've always had a crazy amount of confidence. I think that comes from being homeschooled, or maybe I was, well, no, because my siblings don't have it. I'm a genetic accident, and therefore I don't know.
That's awesome.
I do. I have way too much confidence. But okay, let's see. I started a Instagram when I got back from Europe, like a year and a half ago, and it just sort of took off. I studied a lot on the internet about Instagram before I made an account, and I found out, geotagging and hashtagging and what accounts to interact with and how to interact with them and how often and what time of the day and all that sort of stuff. And it took off, and then people reached out to me, maybe through mutual friends, and they were like, "Hey, can I have your help with my social media?" And I was like, "I'm not qualified." And I was like, "Oh, sure, let's try it." And it worked out like everything. Well, not everything. I have about a 90% fail rate that in life. Just if I'm not failing 90%, I am not risking enough. I'm not trying enough. I'm not experimenting enough. 90% fail rate. But
I
that was,
love that. That is
yay.
so true. And Grant Cardone talks about that. Like, if you're not fearing, like, I think there's a healthy fear, the fear of, oh my goodness, I've never done this before, but let's go. And we're going to get to that in just a second with your skydiving. I think so often we want to play it safe, even as entrepreneurs or as parents or just as human beings. And so we look to mitigate the damages before we even know what they potentially are, right? And so I think a great test, if you want to really push yourself and expand. I actually, Grant Cardone said this the other day too. If the only way to really know what you're capable of is by winning. Like, every time you win, you raise your level. Well, there are a whole bunch of losses on the path to winning, and individuals who are succeeding, it doesn't mean that everything that they touch turns to gold. It just means that they're willing to, like, do something, and it's never try. It's always do it. And then if it doesn't work, like, it's always forward. The successful that have 2 times now and in the future, who cares what happened in the past? Who cares how many other companies I've tried or how many MLMs I've done, or who cares? The important thing is, what's the next thing I'm going to conquer, and finding that perfect thing. And I think that's awesome. So Michala just said 90% of the things that I do are a big fat zero. And I was telling her, I was on a webinar yesterday with my coach, and he was like, yeah, 80% of the things that we do don't work. So we just have to keep going until we find that 20%. And then you find a rhythm in that 20%, and then don't allow your boredom, because success is actually boring. Don't allow your boredom to cause you to go somewhere else. Jump out. So when we go back to fear, what kind of fear do you look for? Like, there's a fear of, oh my goodness, how am I going to pay my bills? Or a fear of, I'm going to jump out of an airplane. So what is your test about fear?
Well, okay, so let's back all that up. I, like, before I did anything, I made sure that I had a safety net, right? And, like, I rebuilt that when I decided to keep Landon and lost all my friends, and it was a really unpopular choice. So I built from rock bottom a support network of, if I fail, I, like, can't fail more than this, like, drew the line in the sand. These are the people that are always going to be there. This is the amount of money that I need to feel comfortable. This is the amount of education I need, so I can't fail, like, more than that. So yeah, I guess everything else sort of gets put into perspective, where you're like, I mean, unless I die, I mean, like, I don't want to say invincible, but I have that support network. So I don't know, if something catches my interest, like skydiving, just jump out of the plane. And I'm not going to say there's not fear. There's fear every day. There's fear every time I get on a plane, every time I drop my son off at school, every time I, leave the country or visit or even come back to the country. This past weekend was rough. And, you're like, well, I guess, figure it out, move through the fear.
Nice. So in other words, don't be a slave to fear.
Yeah. Fear,
right? Like,
never going to go away. Just move through it.
That's right. Yep. And if you're not fearful, do you have that test in your life? Like, if you're not pushing yourself and have that sense of, like, anxious fear, you're on your heels and not on your toes, right?
Yeah.
It's time to go.
I crave being uncomfortable. And if I'm comfortable or if something's too easy, I'm like, well, done. Like, move on to the next one. It's, yeah,
Nice.
could be
Very
done.
nice. So let's talk about how are you getting the attention of hotels in different places throughout the world that you're even getting this travel funded?
Okay, so actually most of my funding is coming from my own endeavors right now. So I do like the consulting, the social media consulting is pretty lucrative right now. I have a couple businesses. I'm working on like an e-commerce one, and I just started a consulting, life coaching, I guess, in December. So most of my funding right now is private, like my own funding. But you just reach out. Last year I was doing that a lot. You send out like 100 emails and you only need one yes. I don't need like 100 hotel rooms for a night. I just need one. So if it's 1,000 emails, if it's like 1,500, like just send them out, whatever. Like no means no, but no also comes from not even asking.
There you go. That's always been my thing. Like, if you don't ask, you're already getting no. So the
Yeah,
only way you can change the no to a yes, the only way you can shift no to yes is by asking.
yep.
What's the
Yep.
worst thing it could say? No.
No. And
Okay.
you
I already have that one licked. All right. So then how are you getting email addresses for hotels and what are you asking them? Like, hey, can I stay for free? Is that what you're asking them or tell me more?
I usually try to trade something. So the social media was a big thing, right? Because I have quite a following on Instagram, which is kind of bizarre, still weird. I run into people and they're like, "Oh, I saw where you were last weekend." I'm like, "Who are you? Weird. Please go away." So I usually trade that, like a little bit of plug. I guess what's that?
Promo.
Yeah, like a promo for them. And I do get, well, I don't do it as much anymore, but I did a lot of guest blogging. So I would ghost write a post for somebody else and they would put it on their website or their blog or whatever, because I like writing. It's easy. I don't have a lot of skin in the game, but I get, to stay somewhere, put some pictures with it. Everything's good.
So so much about influence, right? So Michala's a social influencer. And is your audience people your age mainly?
So my demographics are kind of fascinating. Men my age follow me. About 55% of my followers are men in my age range. And then 45% of my followers are females actually in your age range. So it's interesting.
Young.
Young, a wonderful, wonderful, powerful generation of women.
That's awesome. So let's talk about being a single mom. So you drag this little boy all over the world. So he's not in sports. He doesn't have friends. Like, how do you combat that? And what have you noticed about Landon? Because instead he's like hobnobbing from continent to continent instead of on the the little league team.
Well, okay, so I actually have 50-50 custody with him, and his dad does not internationally travel and is really big into sports. So during the week, his dad gets to do sports. He's doing soccer this season. Next season, he's going to do baseball. He's pretty interested in hockey, so he starts ice skating lessons the first week in April. So he does get all of that. He goes to public school. We do play dates. He has like a normal life, but just as often as I can, I drag him around the world. And a lot of that is training. Like at first he hated it, but now he's a pro at security. He knows when he has to take his shoes off, when he doesn't, where he has to go, who he trusts, who he doesn't trust. Like we're good at that. And I think the biggest thing is that he has really become cultured. And I don't mean that in like, oh, he can understand fine art, which he does, but he'll eat pretty much anything if I tell him to. And everybody is a person, and he doesn't really see differences in race or clothing or religion. Like we're all just brown to him. He's like, okay, cool. So that part's really fascinating. And I think some of that might come from living in Ann Arbor anyway. I don't know if that helps.
So when you travel with him abroad, what are some of let's say someone watching this wants to start traveling more with their young kids. How old is Landon? 6?
He's 5 now.
Okay, so he's 5. What are tips that you would give them about not just like taking a trip to Florida, but traveling abroad with their 3, 4, 5-year-old?
It is going to be rough at first. You're gonna have to power through that. Food is weird in different countries, and the jet lag is real, and you don't have your whole playroom full of toys. You have to learn how to entertain yourself on the go, and the words are different, and the seasons are different, and the people speak different languages, and it's hard. It's hard at first. And now I don't know, training. Just now he knows this is what we do.
Yeah, I mean, think about all the stuff that you're teaching this kid.
I know,
like so awesome. That not to crave comfort and to realize you don't have to do what every other kid is doing, and you can go to other countries, and even if you don't know the language, it's okay. You can figure it out. And I think that is such great training that like you can figure it out. I remember when I picked up and moved the kids to Arizona, it wasn't a super popular decision with many people. And I just felt the Lord saying, go. And obviously if we hadn't gone, probably wouldn't be here in Alaska. And what an awesome thing that is. And so what advice would you give to someone watching who has this like constant nudging and they just keep pushing it down? Like, what do you find about when you jump?
Okay. So back when I made that choice for myself back when I was pregnant, and I decided I was going to keep him and I wasn't going to have an abortion. I wasn't going to give him up for adoption. I made that unpopular choice. That kind of like that little piece just kind of snowballed, and now I make my own decisions. So everybody comes to a decision in their life where they make the choice for their own life. And not everybody has the same faith that I do, but I would suggest that they pray about it. But some people are going to find some other way to make that decision. But everybody is going to be faced with that decision. And once you make that first one, the rest of your life is free. Like, you can make your own decisions. You don't need to worry about what your friends or your family or your peers are telling you to do. You made that one decision and it didn't end up a failure, and you can be confident in your decision-making abilities.
I loved what you said at the beginning of the broadcast about, no one else has done Michala's life, right? I mean, no one else has lived Michala's life. No one else has lived Barbara's life. No one else has lived anyone else who's watching this life. So how do we really know what are the best steps along the journey? We don't. I mean, obviously, as a Christian, we follow God's word and he tells us, but God's word also doesn't say you're going to do this, and then you're going to do this, and then you're going to do this, and then you're going to do this. And I think, it's cool. I think like one of our similar vibrational frequencies is freedom. If it's going to restrict freedom, it's a no, right? Nope. Freedom of time, freedom of money, freedom of relationship, just freedom that you have to, I think, develop, a strategy for making decisions and know what your core values are and making those decisions. Like, for instance, if one of your core values is, let's say you always want to be able to coach your kids' teams. Well, yeah, that's then a decision, like that's the filter that everything's going to like go through. Like Michala's, one of hers is freedom. And so when an idea comes in and it's going to filter down, the very first thing it has to do is not restrict freedom. If it restricts freedom, it's a no.
Yeah. And a great way to figure that out for yourself, I started reading The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, and Stephen Covey talks about that. I mean, like right off the bat, every decision you make has to go through your filter of values. And I was like, what do I value? I didn't even know what I valued. And you're right. Yeah, freedom is it's everything. It's everything. But it's not to other people. Other people like security. Or something else. Comfort. Not me.
Yeah. I mean, if anything, comfort makes you uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Right? Like
twitchy.
Yeah. If everything is just like going copacetic, it's like, whoa, something something's got to change here. It's got to be a little bit chaos. And not that you strive for drama, because I know you well enough to know that that's not the case.
Yeah.
That drama isn't that thing. So, so obviously we've been going here for 34 minutes. So I want to wrap it up with, I have on there how you can get in touch with Michala, but what parting words do you have for individuals who are watching this to encourage them to venture out on their own, or, like what is your sage advice?
Sage. I'm 26. I'm not a sage. Okay. I guess the biggest one would well, for my generation, right? Because we're too busy planning and researching and thinking, and I don't know what I want. I don't know what I don't want. Well, start doing something.
Yes.
You will find out if you like it, and you will find out if you don't like it. Just do something, anything, go, try. And
yes.
90% fail rate.
Just accept it.
Yeah, just embrace it. Whatever, you're gonna fail.
Yeah. But I do like that you said, make sure you have a safety net. And by God's grace, I've always had a safety net and knew that my family was there, just like your family's there. And that's not meaning that we make irrational, dangerous decisions. That's not what we're saying here on this broadcast at all. It just means jump. I mean, you figure out so much about yourself when you're in those situations of, and I think you also realize like, it's really not that big a deal. Like I had a really horrible day yesterday and I was like, it's a day. Yep. It's one day or it's 1 hour. It doesn't have to change the whole course of your life. And I love that you said, stop planning.
Yep. Well, I mean, obviously, okay, I do research and I do plan, but
like
a step, and then you have to do something. You just have to do something.
Yeah. Awesome. And so the last thing is just like a shout out to single moms. What do you have to say to single moms, whether they're 19 or they're, I was a single mom in my 30s and my 40s. So what do you have to say to single moms?
Okay. So that's kind of twofold. So a big thing and why I'm doing everything that I'm doing is because culture tells single moms that they're like a charity case, or they're stupid, or they're trailer trash, or they're something to be treated like a subhuman. And from a religious perspective, I mean, from any perspective, but why would we be pro-life if that's the life that you have to look forward to? And so a big thing is that I'm showing single moms, you have options. You can be successful in an industry. You can travel the world. Having a child doesn't restrict your freedom. You can be intelligent. You can be wealthy. You can be fun and free, and life is okay. You don't have to choose between having a life and keeping your child alive. So that's a big one that I'm trying to change right now. And from the alternate perspective, for people looking at single moms, like single moms, there's a lot of reasons that you become a single mom. And like divorce or loss, or, like maybe there was a father in the picture and they left, and maybe, it was a choice. And for me, it was a choice. I'm not a charity case. I'm not a pity case. I chose this for my life. I chose to not be with Landon's father. And I think Landon has a pretty fantastic life. And I don't think adoption or abortion or any other thing would have been better. And that's really got to be a stigma that we change in the US. It's okay to make that choice. And there's a lot of reasons that someone's a single mom.
Nice. Yeah, we're not victims.
No, I'm not. I have a better life than most of my peers.
Oh, are you there?
Yeah, I'm right here.
Oh, we kind of paused for a second. Yeah, I think that that's a great message that, because you're a single mom doesn't mean you're a victim. And yes, if you want to help, great. If you don't, that's okay. We'll be okay. And so for moms, or, there's also lots of single dads nowadays too, that are stepping up and raising their kids because the mom bolted or she's battling drugs or alcohol or whatever. So the last thing I want to ask you is tell us about your influencers. Like, who has influenced you throughout your life to have this kind of renegade, go get 'em attitude? Is it people who you've been around? Is it people you've studied? Like I did a presentation last week and I said, listen, you are the average income of the 5 people you hang out with.
Yep.
So
That
if
is
you
the
don't,
thing.
if you don't have, if you don't have those, like physically, you can still create that environment for yourself through reading, through, like your social networks online. So you can still create that. So don't just say, oh, well, that's the case. So I'm just going to be a low income earner because everybody around me doesn't make a whole lot of money or doesn't really accomplish much. Don't do that. So who have been your influencers?
Well, actually, growing up, you you
Aww.
you were a huge role model. Strong, independent, feisty, and my mom, for similar reasons, strong, independent, and feisty. And then, yeah, I did. I made a lot of social networks for myself. I have a huge community of travelers that I follow. I have a huge community of skydivers that I follow. I have a huge community of adventure, hiking, climbing people that I follow, and then a ton of rich, successful, entrepreneurial, like social mavericks. And I think it's really important to be constantly flooded with that instead of, oh, here's my friend from high school who has a cat. Like, that's really cool, but it's not.
Yeah. Right. I love that. Here's my friend that has a cat. Nothing against cats,
Nothing
but
against
that's
cats.
not where we're living.
Not, no, yeah. And people are always like, why aren't you following me on Instagram? And I'm like, well, I don't really want to be like you. So I don't really want to look at the things that you're doing.
Yeah, because it's not in my wheelhouse. If it's not inspiring me to take action, it's a no. So awesome. Well, thank you so much, and thanks to all of you who joined us and got a little taste of this amazing girl named Michala. And keep rocking and rolling, and tell your family hi from us, and God bless you.
I will. Thank you so much.
All right, talk to you later.
Okay, bye.